That's right. Oh! So the wolf does. You a wolf? Come on, wolf. Oh! Come on, dog. Oh! Oh! No, I said a wolf, not a rooster. A wolf. Oh! 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 Oh!
What if that's exactly what destroyed Suge Knight? Because for nearly 20 years, Suge Knight wasn't simply a music executive. He was the very own hip-hop's boogeyman.
They roughed everybody else and my whole entourage up. Suge took me out on the balcony, started talking to me personally. On the balcony. Had me look over the edge, show me how high I was up there.
You scared?
I needed to wear a diaper on that day. I was very scared.
People whispered his name, and executives avoided him. Artists reportedly walked away from millions of dollars just to escape his presence. But tonight, somewhere inside the California State Prison, Suge Knight would be alone in his cell with his thoughts. And I wonder what he thinks about. Does he think about Tupac, the Empire, or the hundreds of millions of dollars that flowed through death row? Or does he think about the people who left? Because there is a time when Suge Knight could have walked into any room and millionaires would have started trembling. But today, death row records exist without Suge Knight. Hip-hop exists without Suge Knight, and the world moves on. And that raises a terrifying question. How do you go from this then to this?
Is here for disposition on one matter, sentencing on another matter. We'll start with the TA case. Matters here for sentencing.
Because maybe the most terrifying thing about becoming the wolf is that one day you wake up alone in the cage.
This call is being recorded.
To set the record straight, it's like this. I'm not a monster. I'm not this really bad person who don't care about nobody. I mean, I care about my artists. I'm treating them like family. It ain't just about me. At one time I had 500 employees, and everybody from the ghettos.
By the mid-1990s, Suge Knight had become one of the most powerful men in entertainment. Death Row Records wasn't simply successful, it was dominating culture. Some of the biggest artists in music all stood beneath one label. But Suge wasn't just simply a record executive. I mean, he was a presence. People told stories about him, stories of intimidation, stories of violence, and careers ending overnight. And the most famous involved Vanilla Ice, who later claimed that Suge and several of his so-called associates confronted him in a hotel suite over royalties. Ice said that he eventually signed the money away because he was terrified.
On the balcony, Van Winkle says Suge Knight told him to sign over points from the song to a man named Mario Lavelle Johnson.
Signed over the rights to him, so that Suge and them could get paid for it.
So Mario Lavelle Johnson didn't write that song?
No way.
Whether every story was true almost doesn't matter, because fear doesn't require certainty, it requires uncertainty. People didn't know exactly what Suge Knight would do, and more importantly, they didn't know what people around Suge Knight might do. Because Suge's close association with members of the Mob Piru Bloods, a gang associated decades with violence, extortion, and street warfare in Compton, only deepened the fear. Eventually, Suge Knight stopped being a man and became a consequence. And one of the things I couldn't stop thinking about while researching Suge Knight was how many people left him. I mean, Dr. Dre, Snoop Dogg, executives, and employees left. And that's strange, because this is hip-hop, a culture that often celebrated gang life, violence, and toughness. So you may ask, why did so many people run from Suge? And I think the answer is uncomfortable, because most people perform toughness, but Suge Knight may have not been performing. I mean, take Tupac, for example. Before death row, Tupac was a poet, an actor, a political thinker, but by the end of his life, he seemed increasingly consumed by conflict, enemies, and the role he was playing. And maybe that's why Suge was considered the boogeyman of hip-hop, because he wasn't simply selling the image. Many people believed he was the image. And once the fantasy became real, people realized they wanted the music, but not the reality, because reality gets people killed. And here's where it gets strange. Because the deeper you look into Suge Knight's life you notice he wasn't born this boogeyman. Before death row, he had been a football player, a bodyguard, and an ambitious businessman. He was very intelligent with charisma, and he built one of the most successful labels in music history. So what happened? At some point, being respected no longer seemed enough, but being feared became more important. And that's a dangerous trade, because fear really works. Think about it. People are going to stop challenging you. People stop saying no, and you have a bunch of yes men. But eventually, something else happens. People stop being honest. They stop trusting you, and eventually, one by one, they leave. Like Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg, employees disappeared because fear's main objective is really obedience. It can't create loyalty. And maybe that's the hidden tragedy of Suge Knight. I mean, he built a powerful empire enough to dominate hip-hop, but not strong enough to keep the people closest to him from walking away. And for years, Suge Knight almost appeared untouchable. Then reality started to push back. Death Row completely collapsed. A civil judgment exceeding $100 million devastated the company. Former associates started speaking out against him publicly, and the giant started to weaken. Then in 2014, Suge attended a pre-VMA party hosted by Chris Brown, and gunfire erupted. Suge was struck multiple times. He survived. But months later, reports surfaced that Suge had been knocked out unconscious during an altercation inside a barbershop. I mean, think about that. For decades, Suge Knight had been hip-hop's giant. A man nobody touched. Now people are touching him. The giant is bleeding. And once people see that the giant can bleed, the spell breaks. Because every boogeyman depends on one thing: belief. And belief is fragile.
Protect the sheep, you gotta catch the wolf. And it takes a wolf to catch a wolf, you understand?
What?
Then came January 2015. An argument connected with filming straight out of Compton. A parking lot, a truck, and two men struck. One man, Terry Carter, was killed. Suge has always maintained that he acted in self-defense, but the courts disagreed. Facing life in prison, Suge had to eventually accept a plea deal, receiving 28 years. And I can't stop thinking about the irony, because for decades, Suge Knight controlled rooms. He controlled artists and fear itself. Today he wakes up inside a system where almost every aspect of his life is controlled by somebody else. The money's gone, the empire's gone, and his power's gone, and Death Row moved on. Ironically, Death Row Records is now owned by Snoop Dogg. And the world kept moving, but Suge Knight remained behind bars. And perhaps that is the fate of every boogeyman. Eventually, the world stops being afraid. And most of us will never become a Suge Knight, but many of us would understand the temptation it is to build armor, to become intimidating after feeling powerless, to make sure nobody could ever hurt us again. The problem is that armor has a hidden cost. Eventually, people stop seeing the person underneath, and maybe that's the fatal detail about Suge Knight, because he discovered that fear worked. Then he became trapped inside that role. And after decades of being the boogeyman, I wonder if Suge Knight even remembers who he was before the world was afraid. And that's the fatal detail.
Fuck this, man. Give me that beer.
There you go.